2023 is an election year for Woodland, and this is Facing Woodland, a series where we'll be exploring the issues facing our town, the people who are heading those issues on, and the candidates to either keep their seats or possibly try to take them, and their positions on those issues. I feel like it's important to let someone speak uninterrupted and with context. So get some popcorn or put this on in the background, but it's going to go for a bit. I present proudly Todd Dinehart at the Lilac Gardens.
What do I think that needs to change here outside of those things? Growth, okay? We look at, and I've talked to, our legislative body here in the state. I have reached out to them to have dialogue. I've reached out and had a conversation with somebody at the federal level, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. Why is Woodland struggling with Exit 21? Why is there no federal dollars that are literally coming to us? And I hate to compare this to the I-5 bridge, but I just feel like, okay, we're in the design phase again. We're gonna do more engineering. We're gonna have 2 looks. And we might have this by 2025. We might have it by 2026. Then I look at the Cowlitz County Board of Commissioners, and we signed an MOA there, memo of agreement. That memo of agreement, that was great, but it didn't bind us to anything. It basically says we're going to be nice to each other. Okay, so then I talked to our legislative body, and I talked to an individual at the federal level. We, as a city, whoever we want to say we is, and I would put that as the mayor's leadership, need to play nice in the sandbox. We shouldn't have to sign an MOA with our county board of commissioners. We should be having dialogue with our legislative body here and working with them. We should not be at these standstills. And then we'll get into grants. I almost used the word grant. Grants are wonderful, I get that. But we also need to be careful with these grants. These grants attach us to conditions. It's not just a blank checkbook and say, here's your $5,000. You're required to do certain things and have certain stipulations with those grants. Again, that's where transparency comes back into play. And every time we apply for a grant, it should be easily there. And I know we can sit there and say, okay, it's on our website and those things. So for the last 6 months, I've printed out every agenda, every action item, and it averages right around 125 to 140 pages every 2 weeks. I will challenge to say, I don't think that every single one of our council members and mayor are reading every single page every week or every 2 weeks. There are things that come out, things that I'm like, no. And I've seen social media posts where it's like, nah, that's not what's in that. And I question it. It is a lot of work, I agree with that. Before I continue on, any questions, comments on those things that kind of say, hey, let me go?
I actually had one, because I did read one of those 109-page dissertations of random nonsense, and it continued to reference the Woodland Municipal Council. Is that also the city council, or is that a different body of people?
I don't have the slightest idea. I'm assuming, and I hate to assume, but that is our Woodland Council. And that's where, when I kept reading it, I put it as our council.
Okay, because that's what I see him referencing.
Interchangeably.
Okay, so it's an interchangeable statement.
Because if I look at different items, it was used differently.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay, so that answers some questions for me.
Again, I'm assuming that I don't know.
Right.
100%, but that is where my mindset is. I read that documentation. Any other questions, comments? Fire away, sir.
Going back to your comment about the 3 people, the heads of the department that doesn't live in the city, wouldn't you rather have the right people in the right positions than somebody that lives in the city that wouldn't do as well as a job, that's not as qualified or do as well as do the job as well as they are?
Yeah, I never said they weren't the right people for the job. I said stronger leadership. We're going to have those 3 individuals.
No.
Not saying that they need to be done. They just need strong leadership so that they are doing what is.
Right, but you're not answering my question. I said, wouldn't you rather?
I want the best qualified individual. 100% agree.
Okay.
I want every position. I want the most qualified individual. Totally agree.
everybody here probably knows me. I'm Mary Ripp, and I was clerk treasurer for 32 years. And one of the things I brought up over and over and over is if you're gonna have rules, follow your rules. If you don't wanna follow your rules, change your agreements, change your policy, change your code. That went on deaf ears.
Okay, that brings up another post. So, it's kind of a segue here. My wife, Karina Dinehart, she's born, raised here, lived her whole life here. She's a very private person. Her and I get emotional when I talk about, because, you know, she's just a private person. It's like, hey, you know, that's how she is, but she's like support, and she's like, this is what, you know. So, the mayor, I'm like, hold on, at the end of the day, this campaign, we have won. I am a firm believer we have won. I want transparency, accountability. We did get 2 newsletters. Was the newsletters 100% accurate? Was it everything we wanted? But it was a little bit more transparency. The council meetings now, they are going to have individual dialogue with each agenda and action item. Both those items been hitting on, and so we're seeing the change. So if nothing else, if Will becomes our mayor, you know, for our 12 years, okay, I'm okay with that because we are winning. I don't want him to be our mayor, but we're at least getting some change. In one of his newsletters, he posted a link about the pot shop. It was a kind of a dig where he was trying to get at my sister-in-law and my wife, who put in a notice to the compliance officer. Again, I will own anything and everything that goes on in our household with my wife and I and my children, because I'm not going to hide behind it. I'm very proud of, you know, who we are as individuals and things we do and have done. She put in a note back here 2 years ago to the compliance officer, and her deal was, if they're not zoned correctly, then we should do something with it. Because my wife is looking, going, we've got several businesses are, and back on yours, if you're going to be zoned, you're going to be zoned. Let's follow the rules. So, my wife was not picking on the pot shop. My wife was not being a pain in the rear. My wife is just saying, listen, as a city, if we're going to have guidelines, let's follow them. If we're going to charge this place $250 and this person is getting a fine of $25, but we're not going to charge them all because it's insignificant, that's not right. Why does a business want to come deal with us as a city? We want downtown. We need to fill those areas. We need to do something and provide. Our lake is our showcase here. A dog park should be in there. We have property on the, you know, the south side. Put a dog park in. Not that tough. You know, new apartment complexes are going in on, you know, 503 on the south side there, just past Insel. The hearings board there talked about, you know, the intersection needs, one of the intersections should be at, you know, Insel. There's not a turning lane there. Why should we as residents pay for that infrastructure improvement? Put it on the apartment complex if they want to come. You know, we got lots and lots of apartments. I'm not saying that we're against growth and people shouldn't be able to use their land. But at the same time, and I provided a study 7 or 8 years ago to the council, is instead of putting in apartment complexes and low density homes, why don't we make people put in half-acre lots? Developers don't like that because they're not going to make all the money, but they're not developers from Woodland anyway. They're from Vancouver and up north and things, and so they build and they say, see you later. But if you put in a half-acre, what are we trying to do? We're trying to increase the tax base here so that we do get more property taxes spread from everybody. A half-acre home has higher value. We get additional income here, and we have fewer cars on our roads. I mean, we don't have anything like that. Bendoba just put some larger lots in down below. Again, required. Out, I call it the Petty Place, just past the intermediate school. The Cheever Place, which is just past Slaughterhouse Corner. You know, they're putting in large subdivision there, and I'm like, why are we not putting in larger lot homes? But instead, we're just gonna move in. Fire away.
Okay, this is back to the pot shop. It seems like there's been a lot of confusion about that, like legal or not, and so you were saying that the zoning was being questioned, but I heard someone say, well, it is zoned okay, but it's just, and so I had a council member tell me, it's, the reason she's against it is because the people voted for it. And I thought, I don't remember voting on that. So I called the auditor's office and asked, did Woodland ever vote no on having marijuana cannabis shop in town? The auditor sent me, nope, never has asked that. There was a moratorium determined by the council. And all it would take would be the council to change that. But if there's a zoning problem involved, or would that mean they would just give a variance, or do you know how that could be resolved?
So there is a slight zoning piece, again, but back to the actual moratorium pot shop deal, and this is where it comes, Todd's view. 6,500 people live here. Things have changed since that moratorium went in. We've got 7 council members. Shouldn't we be sitting there trying to figure out, okay, I mean, I feel like it's all of a sudden the, Senate, and we got to figure out if we can get to 51, Republicans and 40, kind of a deal with council members on a 6,500 people. I'm for a republic. Put it before all of us. Let us, individual, if you want it, don't want it, do want it, don't want it, and you know what? And let's have a conversation with John and say, hey, John, this is where we are. It passed or it didn't pass. If it passes, hey, let's get everything lined up. Let's get the zoning. Let's move your thing. And I don't want to speak for you, so you're more than welcome to chime in. But I think that would be doable. And if it came back and the resident said no, I think he probably would say, okay, I'm out. Again, we as citizens need to get what we as a citizen group want. Another perfect example. We did vote down having a city manager here running our city. We have a city manager anyway.
Technically, we have a city administrator, which is, by the letter of the law, different. However, his job description is actually the mayor's job description, which makes one wonder, what was he doing? Because he hired a guy to do his job. And hey, maybe best guy for the job, right? But then what's that say about the guy we elected?
In full disclosure as
Also,
well.
realize the mayor position is also a part-time position.
Yeah.
Correct.
Administrator works for the mayor, who has hire and fire.
Right.
Manager works for the council.
Right. And we were going to have a compensation committee, which I raised my hand, and I'll be full disclosure can on there. I don't think the city council and I don't think the mayor should be paid. I 100%, I do not think that the mayor or the city council should be paid positions. You should be doing this, larger cities, even Oregon City. We have people who are passionate and doing this, and it should not be about an ego, a paycheck. It should be because you care genuinely and want to do what's best for this community.
Like school board.
What was that?
Like school board?
Yep, exactly. But, that's a little bit of a side tangent there. Piece. So, that, back to, what we vote for as citizens.
Well, and the thing about the city council and the pot shop because I've been looking into this too. I'm trying to, this is my community now. I care about it. These guys have run unelected or unopposed for a few terms. Mayor ran the last 2 terms completely unopposed.
And I would ask, are we better off today than we were 8 years ago?
I live here now, so technically yes. But when it comes to the weed thing, I mean, if the popular sentiment is changing, we're not putting people in those positions to represent that change. And so you're getting a lot of this same old, especially by people who, what are you going to do? Vote them out? I mean, that's not happening. Were you going to run against them? That also doesn't occur. So why wouldn't they just do whatever they felt was best in the moment? Because as far as they're concerned, they do have the full support of the town because no one's running against them or trying to unseat them.
And again, not that I dislike Will. I would say this about even if it was me or anyone else. When you're a mayor for 12 years in a town, you pretty much have put your footprint. It is pretty much, your image. I am very much pro term limits, so that's my view in life. And so, again, it's not because of Will and him being there for 8 years and could potentially be 12. That is not against him. It's just me and my mindset is I'm very much, think that we should have term limits.
I have kind of a concern with the city council. I was at the last meeting, The councilmen have treated me wonderful. I have nothing against any of them, even though I'm considered one of the evil ones in town. But I noticed that there's 14 people in the city sitting around in chairs, and some of them I've not given enough credit for. The woman in the utilities department is awesome, and one in the building department was tremendous. But I tell you, when you got 14 people running the city, and there's only 9 people, citizens sitting out there, it's like, think about it this way. Someone gives 14 people $40 million, and there's just a few people that are there to represent. Now, I've heard councilmen say, I've talked to 30 people, I've talked to 60 people. I don't know. I've talked to a lot of people out there, and some of them don't even know who the councilmen are, let alone ever having a call from them and never having called them. So it's not a fault of the council itself. People have to get involved, and I don't know how they do that. When I first started attending meetings there, very cold, sterile, intimidating. I remember it very clearly because I was kind of shocked by the demeanor. But, and I could understand why people don't attend.
Yeah. So,
It's just a side comment. But if you're gonna have a good city government and relatively happy people, then you have to have more people involved. 12 people are not representative of 6,500 people. God, man, you all think maybe I fell off a watermelon wagon, but that's not right.
first of all, you didn't fall off. You're still riding it, buddy. Second of all, I think that it comes down to leadership at the top. So my perfect example is my son got married on Tuesday, so I didn't make it to the council meeting on Monday. So that was my issue there, reason. But as I watched it back through, when a citizen goes up and asks questions, if there's only 5 people there, do we care if it goes 2 hours or 4 hours? Sit there and go through and have the dialogue. If somebody brings up 4 questions about Lolo the dog, address them. You know what I mean? Have a dialogue, have back and forth. I mean, again, the more dialogue, more conversation, the more people will start to come. But when people go up there and they address city council, and then it's like, okay, thank you, have a good day.
There was one meeting where Will Finn, actually during the process of asking the group, and I think you all been there probably, hopefully, or watched it, but asking Proposition D, this is how you, yay or nay or whatever it is. And people sitting out there saying, well, what's Proposition D? The answer would be, go look at the agenda where that is, you know. A very proper way of doing that, and the way I've been told to do it, if you can't use a symbol, you gotta say Proposition Z, putting the sidewalk in front of XYZ Street, it's cost $184,000, bids are on file, and it will cause interruptions in your traffic in this area from such and such and such and such. Good communication, there should be no question in it.
100%, because I'm gonna go back to, has everyone read those 100+ pages?
No, they don't.
And here's a perfect example. I felt horribly sad for our 3 city workers that were there at the last meeting of June when it was about impact fees. They had done a ton of work on impact fees, on whether to raise, lower residential, apartment, and all of that. And then at the last minute, it came in and said, hey, well, let's all talk about impact fees. This discussion had been going on, and I felt bad that here, all of a sudden, they put it on the agenda, they were ready to go, and it was like, had everyone read and discussed that, and so now it's going back. To me, that is, again, leadership here, and let's have a dialogue, and let's figure out what is the whole piece. And I'm going and happy to talk about impact fees and go on a little bit. I know Darlene Johnson was talking about, you know, she is a proponent of getting rid of impact fees.
Raise them.
So I am a proponent that you keep the impact fees there. So yeah, she was using her example that you pay, you know, if somebody pays $10,000 of impact fees for 30 years, it goes in their mortgage. So on a, you know, $10,000 of impact fees, 30-year mortgage, I mean, it's about $5 a month. For them to pay $5 a month to join our, you know, services, I struggle to think that that's going to be a make or break on I'm not going to buy this house versus that house. And I, you know, working in the electric side where we provide, you know, the utility services and for subdivisions and things, I struggle to think that, well, if I don't get $10,000 in impact fees here, come on in, sir. If I don't get $10,000 in impact fees here, I'm going to then turn around and I'm going to spend $10,000 more on, you know, a different size house.
Thank you.
I think that just $10,000 the builder's going to put in their pocket and say, hey, thank you, Woodland, I appreciate it. So that's where I kind of stand on impact fees. You have had your hand up.
I'm gonna take you back to the pot shop.
Yep.
I'm really curious to know, you said you went in to find out what's the benefit of, to a community of a pot shop.
Mhm.
What did you find out was the
So
benefit?
I met with John, I've also met with customers, and back on my wife's complaint to the compliance officer, and I've been very clear, I was worried about the people over there on Cherry Blossom. How are those residents feeling that, hey, I've lived on this street for 40 years. I mean, the Blanchards, I mean, I can go through the list of people who have lived on that street for years, okay? How do they feel that all of a sudden this 24-hour shop is gonna be right there? And so my first thought was, ooh, they're gonna hate it. So what I've done is I've done some research, I've knocked on those doors, and the crime is down, they feel safe, they actually feel like they have a small town Woodland, they don't lock their doors, they know there's security there. And I was taken aback and I said, wow. I said, I appreciate your candor. I was over on this camp here, and that was one thing that I've learned is, hey, the residents that live right there are okay. Nowhere did I say, are you in favor, yes or no? I don't think that, I'm not into saying, hey, how do you vote on this, how are you? If somebody wants to vote for Will, I'm okay. I just want people to vote. It's a republic. People, vote. Go out there. Again, you know, if Will or Jana or myself, it doesn't make a difference as long as we come back as a community together. So that, I've learned there are a lot of individuals in Woodland who partake there from a medical standpoint. I've been very blessed. I don't have medical issues. I have never, you know, had to seek a different treatment. I know people who have had to. They've chosen not to use, you know, CBDs and medical marijuana, and there's different choices. But there are a lot of individuals that have. So I look and go, I was naive on that piece. I figured, I probably don't think, you know, but as I stood there, had dialogue, conversation, I don't want to speak for John and his business, but from my experience of talking to people that were there, and again, social media does, only certain people are on social media. So it's me sitting there on those park benches, people not knowing who I am, and just saying, hey, you know, what brings you to, you know, the business today? There is at least 40 to 50% of those customers are using it for medical.
I don't want to speak for the people that come in, but you're more than welcome to sit there, and there's probably at least 60 to 70, maybe even 100 people your age every day using it, not just to get high. So feel free, the door is always open, and the customers always like to talk.
So, again,
So those are the benefits.
Well-
For the people that have medical needs, and also, because it keeps the area around the pot shop
actually, the
safe.
crime, so I also talked to the Tractor Supply, I talked to the little coffee shop. Again, it is so easy for any one of us to assume. Assumptions are the easiest things in life. Not until we have dialogue and conversation. I can stand up here and talk for hours with anyone. I mean, I have opinions, I want you to give your opinions, questions. That is the biggest thing, is how do we have respect and learn from each other? And so, yeah, I was struck by awe at the number of people that were in here, and I honestly thought they were coming in to buy a joint, they were coming in to buy a bowl of this. I mean, I don't, and they're like, no, I'm buying a rub. I need this. I bought this ointment. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea. And I'm like, why are you not driving? And again, I'm gonna, you know, I don't want to break confidentiality. Some of these people are reduced low income. they don't have the means to drive to the center or even to the casino to buy those things. I'm not saying yay, let's have a pot shop, and all because of medical here. I'm not saying that at all, but this is mostly what I've learned.
The other thing to really consider, especially when we start talking about like weed, is not just the, at this point, decades of national research that's been done in a number of states about medicinal use, recreational use, benefits. Yeah, I know. But also the fact that when you prohibit a substance, you create a crime around that prohibition. You know, we all know too well about who here didn't learn about prohibition in high school and how it didn't work well. You know, and regardless of the negative effects of alcohol, whether that be a reduced family, cirrhosis of the liver, drunk driving deaths, which are all really bad stuff, none of that's associated with marijuana. And taking the time to, you know, outlaw a substance without studying its overall effects, or to review the other communities and see what they've learned and how they've grown or changed as a result, is, I think, maybe to be a little willingly naive in your initial research. And it's important to, you know, take a look at the other people, see what they've done, how they've flourished.
Let me ask you this, how many of you have lived here more than 10 years? I mean, so again, you look at the people who have moved in, again, I'm very much open arms here. I don't know you personally, I don't know you personally. And again, I respect you, I want to be your friends, our neighbors. And so how do we get along? And so that's why I say put it to a vote. I can't say, well, you know what, 10 years ago, we had 4,000 people and we said, nope, nope, nope. I mean, there's new research, things have changed, new people have come. It's not like we put a wall around Woodland and said, hey, you're not welcome here. We put new housing in. We built, you know, housing for people to come in. So, does that answer your question? Absolutely. Kids, if you want more ice cream, go get more ice cream. Seriously. It is all good. I'd be all over the ice cream, kids. Grandma will be okay.
I just wondered, if you become mayor, you'll have a lot to learn, of course, but would you happen to know right now if city council receive a letter from a citizen, are they required to forward that to the mayor? I know the school board members have an agreement with the superintendent. If they hear from a citizen, send it to the superintendent.
So I've done some research on that, and that is a back-end agreement between Green and the school board. That if they get something, Green gets it, and depending on what it is from Green, he forwards it to the school board, kind of a deal. That is an agreement they have. So, the research and the legal interpretations from where I have had somebody look at it from external legal is we are not required to. If it is addressed to a council member, they are not required to. They can. It's not breaking confidentiality unless you say, hey, please keep this confidential. So, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Like I said, I'm an open book. My phone number is out there. My email is out there. At the end of the day, I just want people to vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for, as long as we vote. We all get a say.
I've been looking into the traffic at 21.
Oh yeah,
and
let's talk about that.
Sure.
You came in a little bit after that.
Historically, it was a city council agenda in 2018, maybe 19, as one of their we're going to address it this year's. I had a conversation, weirdly enough, with the firefighters who said that they received some proposals of what it would be like, but at Planners Day, Mayor Flynn had a whole production of everything that they've done and to be very transparent, and I couldn't find any of that. So are we re-engineering those proposals? Do you know anything about where we are in the process?
Again, through my research, I have not been able to get everything that I've wanted. I believe there are 2 drawings. One of them is a roundabout. One of them goes back behind, and so there are 2. I know that the mayor has said that there will not be a roundabout,
Okay.
but my dialogue with legislative and county is that the roundabout is still in discussion. It has not been thrown out the window at all.
I mean,
I know one thing, I asked Travis, this is one thing I do, there is 2 drawings. The city council picked the one that Cowles County did not pick, so they're both picked opposite, so maybe that might be part of the reason is Cowles County picks one, city picks a different one.
I don't know, Deanna, you're shaking your head, what do you got to say?
That's what Travis told me, you guys picked one and the county
City
picked a
Council
different one.
voted signals.
So that's just, there was 2 and he showed me both of them inside the city hall. He said you guys went for one and the county went for a different
The
one.
county doesn't get a say. So there was a study done, gosh, and I can't think of.
June of 2022?
Well, no.
Or you're looking way before that?
Predate. So, it doesn't matter. I'm not here in that capacity. I'm here as a citizen.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. Everything with that study, they had multiple open houses. There were multiple opportunities to come in and watch the video because I attended it. The engineering company put multiple different options so the public could see what that would look like. It was before council. Council made a decision. It has to be engineered up to 30%. And once it gets to 30%, the state has the opportunity to say, well, we still want roundabouts. There was an article, I just shared that with somebody the other day, that there was an article about that council meeting. But it's literally all documented in every single council meeting and open house that happened regarding the most current study. And there's one that the state did that is like from 2005. That says the exact same thing that the current one says.
And so that 30% drawing is the city on the hook to pay that fee.
The money that was, so the money that was supposed to go to the Scott Road Reconnect thing was reallocated to the engineering of Exit 21. That was a council decision to move that money from that fund to the engineering of Exit 21 because the Scott Road Reconnect, whatever that was never gonna happen.
So that 30% engineering, we will use the funds,
Correct.
and we'll be on the hook for it.
Thank you.
But that's one of the things that is misrepresented because didn't go to the open houses, but I did follow all of it, and you didn't have to go to the open house to see everything. But it was, unless also in the newspaper it was wrong, as with everything with the state, they say, we're gonna let you choose what you like, but ultimately, it's our project, we're gonna do what we're gonna do. Which is one of the problems I had with what was going on with the hearing for the apartments that are gonna be across from Insel and Gun Club Road, because our city planners were fighting with the state, who was fighting for and telling the developer, no, you're gonna do this. This is a state highway. And we're saying, and the city is saying, we don't need to have a turn lane there. I'm like, this is, don't fight with something that's gonna better our community. And those kind of things I see as a leadership issue. And as well, I asked during the hearing, it's in all the things, I asked when the study was done for the traffic study. I said, was it done while school was in session? Was it done during COVID? It wasn't during COVID, but they couldn't remember when it was. It wasn't released until everything was already agreed upon, or not agreed upon, but decided by the hearings examiner. It came out that the study was done June 21st of 2022, which was after school let out for last year. That doesn't tell you what traffic is really like or give you any impacts of that. But also that's part of what comes into play when you have people who live outside of the community, because during the hearings, I was the only person who brought up the fact that I said, where is the overflow parking going to be? And the answer was, it's going to be on the residential streets. And I said, there's not a residential street on that side of the highway. You're going to have people crossing Lewis River Road with elderly, children, all that kind of stuff. It was not brought up by our city staff. I don't know why we choose to only have 1.5 parking spaces when we don't have public transportation.
We should be
It's not
requiring every
realistic.
unit to have 2 parking, is my opinion on this whole thing.
But we need to have we need to be fighting for the things that we need and working with the state when we can to get the things that are a benefit for our town. Because obviously no one had been over there to look at that and go, there is nowhere else to park.
Well, it's just like the hearings examiner, his report came back and said that the developer will be paying to get the obnoxious weeds and that out of the 10 acres down below. And then in the mayor's newsletter, he put out there that he was looking for volunteers. If you look at the examiner's report, it specifically says that they are on the hook for that. So again, I'm all for getting volunteers to help work and clean up our community. Got it. But at the same time, we need a developer to be responsible for their expenses. Any other questions, comments?
I just have one more comment, and impact fees, and I brought this up to the council probably a month and a half ago, and I asked, they were giving a slideshow and they showed the different levels of money they were collecting for different things, and I said, why isn't transportation at or near the top, and when was the last time those rates were raised? And
We should be looking at impact fees
the response was it was
Manually.
it was coming like just in a meeting or two, and I still haven't seen transportation on the agenda.
So my understanding is all the impact fees are being looked at together. That is how I took their,
I'm just hoping that it's not too late after the development permits get issued.
and my view
And we
is,
lose out on that.
I would think that we should be looking at impact fees biannually, every other year, just, hey, let's look at impact fees and what do we as a community and as a city need and require. Back on the city planner, and this gentleman here brought up, the job description. So, again, different things out there. One of the questions that's come up is, Peter, when is his last job performance review been? He hasn't had that in 5 years. Okay? That to me, that's leadership. How does he know if he's doing his job well or not well? That to me, that sits right on the mayor. And I don't care if you think he's doing a horrible job or a great job. You need to give direction and let people know, hey, I'm doing great or I'm not. That is dialogue there. Personally, if my boss didn't tell me that I was doing a great job, I'd be like, what's going on here? So, more leadership, I think.
There's no motivation unless you're challenged now and then.
Yeah.
As a manager, one thing that bothers me about city council, and I'm sorry, but damn it, I'm gonna tell you the truth, God's listening. I hate seeing that lawyer sit there at $210 an hour, and I've calculated his words as being about $50 a word. Now, I have paid lawyers $16 a minute for a consult over the phone. Why couldn't that be part of a contract? Give the extra $800 or whatever you save every month. Give it to these councilmen and have them give them a little challenge like, here's 6 or 8 questions that have been addressed by the public. Go out and get some feedback from 8 people. Then when you got back, you have a, what do you call it? A group to pick from to disseminate and find out what the real people really feel about what's happening.
Let's do a
because
request
there's
for
not
proposal.
communication right now.
Let's look at the last, 12 months, 14 months of the value that he has brought to each of those meetings. And instead of paying him by the hour, let's do a fixed bid contract. Say, listen, we will pay you $20,000, $10,000. This is yours to come to these council meetings, come with this here. If the council meeting goes long, boom, if it goes short, but at least it's a fixed bid price.
You didn't let me finish because you see, when I was manager, I had the highest paid people in my organization doing janitorial work because nobody gets something for nothing. That's all. That's asinine. I didn't give you anything for nothing. That's anybody else. Sorry, that's the way it is.
Got it. Any other questions and comments?
Are there any plans to build the YMCA? It's been collected for several times, and are they finally gonna use all those funds they?
So I see heads in the back going, and I'm one of the ones who will tell you, listen, the YMCA and the city and the pool are two different entities and two different organizations. So the city never collected a dime. The city was working on agreement, but they never collected any money. They never paid any money for this. And so at the end of the day, the long, short story of where the pool funds are, yes, there's a piece of property here that they had. They used to have a piece of property here. At the end of the day, where did the funds go? It went to legal fees. I don't want to get into the family who did that and the reason they did that. And I mean, we had, several meetings back in the day about whether we could cut the trees down at the park because it was going to block the view and whether it was going to block this. If anyone asks, at the short end of the story is it went to legal fees. But the city has nothing to do. And just like the school, the school board, the schools, they never, they could have done cookie sales there, but that wasn't using their funds or whatever. How many times do we have cookie sales for the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or this? So, I will defend that and the city council all day long on that.
I believe the pool, which are you citizens, also own the lakeside motel property.
And that's
so
the piece of property.
That's their asset.
Correct, that's their piece of property. That's what I say. I'll tell, straight up, I'm not here to, say, oh, the council, they had nothing to do with that. So.
I have another question
Okay.
too. I don't know if it was already asked before I got here, but there are times in the day, if you're over here at Safeway or you get off the freeway, the traffic underneath the freeway there, especially you have a lot of semis too, and then they're wanting to go up
Go
north.
straight.
And so it's really backlogged and what are they gonna do? I had heard years ago that they had talked about building a bridge over by Safeway, over by
Scott
Smells.
Avenue overpass, that is dead. That is a no-go. And actually, that was the conversation. The funding that was there has been now moved in the fund to pay for the engineering, the 30% engineering that needs to be done on the exit 21. So that is where that is at.
What are they gonna do to alleviate all that traffic
Yeah.
congestion?
And that's where Deanna, and if I, don't paraphrase this correctly, so the city has came out with their recommendation, and to move it further, they have to come up with the 30% engineering. They'll take that to the state. The state can come back and say, no, that is not what we want, yay or nay. But to get to the next step is we have to have that design phase done, and that is where it is at on the design phase. And the mayor said that it will not be roundabout, so the design phase that they're working on now is one without a roundabout.
What's your idea on alleviating that problem?
On alleviating the traffic, I fully support putting it back behind and moving.
Back behind what?
So the AM, PM, and those businesses there, I think that you should have a shoot off that comes off of 21 that I can instantly shoot off and go across the bridge. I can go straight through. I should not need to come to that light there. That is one of the biggest issues I see to get moving the traffic. And that is one of the proposals that they are at. And so, again, I'm not against the direction that they are going on that. My concern is that it's not going to be till 2026 that this will be moving along. And until then, are we still going to allow housing and apartment buildings and all of those? If we can't get through the exit and there's a backup, at what point do you say, okay, this is our bottleneck and we're no longer wanting additional,
But you don't have any plans about putting a new exit on the freeway or anything like that?
the council and the city has already gone down that road. That would be a,
No, I'm asking what your idea about.
I'm going to fully support this one here. Again, the ship has sailed on that, so I don't think that it's one of those things where we would come in and say, oh, hey, let's change that up here. I think that building the relationship, though, with our state legislators and our county commissioners and the board that way, so that we can get the funding, and when it is there, they say, boop, sign the check and go. It's working with our local legislative body and our officials in Olympia so that we have the funds right there available. That is where my discussion is needed. Because again, if we're gonna go, I mean, we're starting that design phase. So it doesn't make, and again, the mayor doesn't drive and decide policy. He decides and directs, gives leadership in the direction. And so if we've already started that, come January when the new mayor comes in to go do redesign work, I am not for recreating wheels and doing, you know, additional expenditure dollars. 100%. You will never see Todd say, don't worry about it, we've spent there, we'll go here. The one thing I will say though is on the Minot contract, though, I still to this day have not figured out how much money it is quote unquote saving us to have that outsourced to Texas. They've got an area up in Seattle, a call center. Okay, if it's saving us $5,000, $10,000, I sit there and I look and go, to have a good paying job in our city that will use our services, that will pay and use our sales tax, you'll probably get that $10,000 back by having the job here. So again, that is one of the things I would look into as well and say. And at the last council meeting at the end of June, Peter said it would take 6 months if we were to cancel that contract to bring it back in-house. Okay.
Does our sewer treatment plant, is it able to support all the new building that's going on now?
So, great question on the sewer treatment plant. Brought this up here in November or December, and I still would be pushing on this, and this is where I would say, hey, this is what we should be looking at. So, 1.5 million gallon tank is what they wanted. Originally it was 3 million. Last thing I heard was Tracy said that it's north of 5 million that it's at. Okay? If we're putting all these new housing in, we should be looking long term. And even if it's not new housing, but what will fit the needs of growth, and I say growth from internal. People having families and, you know, my children, my grandchildren, I want them to live in this group. So there's that internal growth, not growth from everywhere else. Why are we not looking at a 3 million gallon? What's the differential in price in there? And instead of doing a 5-10 year bond that raises our rates, let's say 8-9%, why can't we do a 30-year bond? Because you're getting the life of that pond, that holding tank longer. And so then you would still have the same rate increase, but it's going to make it so that we are not, you know, in a shortage again in 7-10 years. So it's thinking that long term. So that's where I am on the water treatment and the sewage.
Changing the subject a little bit. What are your thoughts on fireworks ban for our city?
So I live out on Lewisford Road. I have 3 acres out there and I have a house that sits along the river. I've got a field that's out there. I mow it every year. I actually have it mowed every year before July 4th. Again, I've got people that are shooting up all around me. I am not one who is in favor of banning fireworks. I think that we have city, you know, ordinances code. You can shoot from this to this. Again, that's my view. And again, are we good at preventing the fire, or are we good at putting the fire out? I think we've done a good job here preventing the fire. I think that what we have there, we haven't caused fires and we haven't caused all these things, you know, other things. So to me, I don't know that we would.
Well, you're fortunate to be living in a rural area like that. We that live right here in town, in the neighborhood, it sounds like World War III going on. Not because of the legal little Roman candles and the nice displays. It's the people that are using the mortar type shells.
The large
Illegal.
stuff.
And they are illegal, aren't they?
And they've been illegal for as long as I can remember.
And see, okay, so that's a totally different conversation. If it's a legal firework, okay,
Why
totally.
isn't the ban enforced by the police?
What was that?
Why isn't it the law enforced by the police.
If they're banned, why are the last 2 or 3 years and this year?
Again, so I've talked to
hearing-
several of the police officers, several of them don't live in here. They've thrown their name and backing to me, and the couple people that do live within our city do. I will certainly reach out and ask them why. I mean, I'll be honest, I mean, this last weekend I was over in Cle Elum at my son's wedding, July 4th, and so didn't see anything that was going on here, but I mean, I don't honestly
They
know
were
why.
very good about stopping at midnight on the 4th and 11
And
o'clock.
following the ordinance, yeah.
I know personally, not this year, but past years where they have done some enforcement, but of course, 7 to 10 officers is only spreading
Oh,
so thin, and there's
of course.
only 2 or 3 on duty, and so they're gonna hit and miss, but they're not gonna get everybody. Yeah.
I can ask them and just,
Unfortunately, yeah.
I'm happy to ask them and say, hey, how many calls did you guys have? What was,
boom goes
I mean,
off.
I know,
Yeah.
I'll just ask them and say, hey,
If-
what do you know out
If
there?
they're patrolling around the city, they're gonna hear it,
A presence is always helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, if they've got a higher priority, if they've got a,
Yeah.
break in or something else, I mean, they're gonna go to that way
Sure.
before they go to, so that's why I say, wasn't listening to the police blotter
It only takes a few of these people
to ruin it for
to
everyone.
ask, to prompt us to wanna ban the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kinda where we're at. And not just because we're old people either. We have a lot of young people around us that are very,
Young kid.
with little kids that it really bothers.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it comes back to respecting your neighbors and getting to know, the
The
individuals.
other cities are doing it. They're banning the fireworks. And you should see all the lawns. Well, you probably do see all the lawns around town.
Yellow.
You know,
In the
we're
Right.
out there watching the sparks come down and all this dry grass.
Just one overarching, this is overarching
No.
question. Would you describe yourself as fiscally conservative, liberal,
100%.
somewhere in between?
I'm a very much fiscally conservative.
Okay, how about social?
Socially, I am pretty conservative.
Pretty conservative.
So, again, I'm a full disclosure, full book here. Grew up, was in the Catholic Church, grew up, went to LaSalle High School, graduated from there. In college, graduated, met my wife. She grew up here in the Presbyterian Church in Woodland. We had children. My children have grown up in the church. We go to New Heights Baptist Church in Vancouver. It was very friendly, church friendly for children. I've been there for 27 years. So yes, I'm very fiscally and socially. However, I think when we say socially conservative, that's where people all of a sudden go, oh, wait a minute, you're against, no. Everyone has a voice, everyone has a seat at the table. Like this here, it would be one thing if I said, oh, everybody come in here. But then I said, oh, you don't get to talk, but I'll talk on you. And no, everybody should get to. I mean, we all are proud of our family members and loved ones. Everyone should be proud of one another. So again, I want to be careful when people say, well, you're socially,
Yeah,
So-
I did that.
Yep. So that's 100% where I am. And I'm happy to talk anything and everything about those things. So, all right.
I have another question. I don't know if it was talked about before I got here, but I live on Lewis River Road. And we bought our home about 14 years ago there. And at any given time during people getting off work, you could get out onto the Lewis River Road out of your driveway at any given time within probably a half a minute. Now sometimes you're waiting there 5-10 minutes before, and then you gotta punch it to get out there or you won't get out.
Yeah, I'm right there before it goes from 35 to the 55.
Well, I was,
No, coming in.
Right,
well,
that's
my-
what I'm saying. I'm right there where then hopefully people will slow down, but they don't.
well, my thought is to me, they're kind of getting the cart before the horse. They're allowing so much, because we see the logging trucks coming down from upriver. They're doing all of the building there when we're still having all of the congestion here in town. And to me, you would fix the congestion problem first, then you would do the building.
So that is where you missed my earlier conversation. So out on 503, I call it the Petty Place, it's just there north. The Cheever Place is there on the south side. I mean, for better or worse, those are the names I've grown up with here, right past Slaughterhouse Corner. Okay, my thought was, why wouldn't you do those in half-acre parcels? You would have less cars, higher tax value, higher value homes. You know, you would still get your tax basis for your property taxes, it's a win there, but we have less home. That's where I think we needed, as a city, need to be strategic and say, you know what, let's put them on 7,000 square foot lots, 4,000 square foot lots. Again, I'm not against, you know, affordable housing in the sense of, you know, starter homes at all. But I think you have to have diversity in all of your housing, and all of these large homes are up on the hill, around here. Why can't we do some inside the city limits with the, you know, property that's still there?
Yeah, to me, when their mindset is only on money, 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 tax, 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 do it logically, to me, is fix the problems, then you can build those, and it will accommodate all of the traffic.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean,
Right.
10 years ago, I went to the, you know, I took a proposal and calculated our total tax base, accountant here, went through all of our dollars and said, okay, if you did, and this is when we had more property available. And again, Dale Boone, where Meriwether is, Boone's farm, all for Dale getting his money. I'm good friends with Dale, he takes care of my farm, you know, great guy. But he still could have gotten the same amount of money out of his farm if he would have done larger lots, and we would still have the same tax base here, and we'd have fewer cars. Again, I'm not against Meriwether neighborhood at all. I'm just saying, let's be strategic in what we do with our homes here. You know, I know there's a few lots here in downtown still, and I see, okay, what used to be a lot is now 2-3 lots. So,
What's one of the first steps you do if when you're elected mayor?
I'm going to provide leadership to our city employees, build a relationship with them. Again, I don't want anyone to think that they're doing a bad job and they're not, you know, doing things. Again, they need to know what they're doing good, what they're not doing bad. Build that relationship there for one. Build additional transparency. When we have a council meeting, we should know. The second council meeting every month, we should know the previous month, this was our projected revenues, this was our projected expenses, boom. Are we in, over? What's driving those things? So, and having accountability for each of those departments saying, hey, listen, what's going on? It should not take that much work. Those are simple things that we can. And then it's looking and saying, hey, the pot shop. How do we work on getting that on the ballot? There are things that the citizens, either they want or they don't want. Okay, that's a hot topic. Minot, that city attorney, okay? You should know whether or not they're in breach or not. It should not be one of those things that's like, well, I don't know. Okay?
Todd, going back to that meeting, I think I don't think you're remembering everything
Okay.
perfectly.
Correct me.
Because you even came up after the meeting, we had a conversation about it. Because I'm the one that brought the question up. Have they reached a contract? Because I want to know.
Correct. And then it went over to
Went to
Mayor Finn
Will.
and he asked the
And
attorney.
went to the attorney.
Yep.
And his words was, not to my knowledge, not all, I don't know. His exact words were, not to my knowledge.
That's the same thing.
That,
No, it's not the same thing. I don't know, and not to my knowledge, it's
so,
not
I
the
mean,
same.
I don't want to
It's
go
the same.
Okay,
James Potter here. I will go back and watch it.
Okay.
So you're saying, okay, I will go back and listen to what he said, because I certainly, and I will be the first to email you or
Because
call you and
believe
say
it
I
or not,
apologize.
I'm on the same page with you on the Midol situation.
I mean,
I'm not all the way for it, and that's why I brought it up, because I want to know.
yeah.
And the answer that I got from the powers to be that know was, you looked straight at me and you said, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
So that means to me, no, they have not.
Okay, and my recollection is I can't answer yes or no. So I will go back and play it, and away we go. Perfect.
We got one more question, then I'll get out of your hair.
I don't believe you.
You're probably right. When you take over as mayor, and the city administrator, the planner, the developer, all the
Business development.
who's there, and they have things in progress, are you gonna let them continue this, or are you gonna, because I've been thrown in and it's hard to change horses in the middle of the stream, man. You know, to make radical changes because you can get thrown really bad.
That's building relationships with them and understanding what things are in flight, what things are out there, what are the things that they have, you know, drummed up in their head. So again, dialogue. It starts with dialogue and conversation. That's why the minute I threw my hat in here, I said I was going to have open houses, have town halls. I was going to, you know, meet and greet people, because again, not until you get to know someone, Willie, will we understand what your thought process is. And so Travis, Peter, Tracy, I need to understand what is their thought process, what is their vision that they're working towards.
You're gonna have to keep your meeting, one of y'all are gonna have to keep your meetings secret so you don't get them going the same night, because that throws us off.
So this is the other thing I mean, and it's interesting, you know, the things I've thrown out here, all of a sudden I start seeing, you know, spread in the current mayor. So one of the things that I think we need as a city, and I don't care if it's 5 people that show up, I don't need city council to show up because I don't want a quorum, but I think at least quarterly, the mayor needs to have outside, we can go to the park, we can come to the Lilac, not a city council, because the minute you have it at city council, the minute I have a quorum, then it becomes, have open dialogue. Willie, talk to me. What is working in that mayor's office? What is working in that city hall that is or not working? Mary, boom, and let's have it. I'll spend 4 hours, people.
I have trouble just getting a hold of that counselors, you know. I got a date with Deanne back there, but she keeps standing me up all the time. We're gonna have coffee and she's gonna help me understand how things are initiated in the business of how does the council come up with the things that they're gonna make ruling on when I see only 8 people in here and I don't have any evidence of good communication between the people. But I'll say one thing, the mayor's done a hell of a good job of information sharing the last, month and a half.
So we had 2 newsletters and then it fell off. And again, when we sit there and say, only 4 people or 5 people show up, I'm perfectly fine if I have a meeting and there's only 4 or 5, because everybody's given an opportunity and a voice to come, sit here for hours and have a good dialogue and conversation.
Well, just gotta be honest, that's the most, I better go.
Come on.
Answer a question and you don't get those, you're not answering the question. So
that means, because no, means no.
That's a makes a difference.
Yeah.
Because either I don't know or not my knowledge.
Any comments are worthwhile?
They just don't.
There might come a time when I'm back in the city.
How many times do I go into town and I go to one place? How many times do they come here and they're going to go to multiple places? Let them. We want to welcome that. So, that's my 2 bits on that piece. All right.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Appreciate it.